Hello, everybody. My name is Craig Renti, and welcome to the world's greatest licensing podcast. Very happy to have today's guest with us, Foster Awintiti Akugri. I hope I got that right. Excellent.
Excellent.
Welcome to the show, Foster. We really appreciate your time coming here and sharing your thoughts and your expertise with us. But I want to let you know there's a little pressure on you today because it is the world's greatest podcast. You have to be the world's greatest podcast guest today. So no pressure.
My pleasure to take that title for the day. I guess I get to have a Guinness World Record title certificate afterwards, or a Palisade certificate.
You get a mug that says
Oh,
world's greatest podcast guest. Yes, absolutely. So Foster, again, thank you so much for joining the show. Whenever I speak to someone for the first time, someone new, I always go to their LinkedIn profile. I say, who is this person? Who am I talking to? And I went onto your LinkedIn profile and I was looking at your experience. And there's a little button that said, do you want to see all 44 experiences he had? And I was like, if you went to my LinkedIn profile, there would be two. So I was like, yes, I want to see someone this young, what they've done. And I'm like, okay. So Apex Advisory founder, participant, executive in the African FinTech Summit, Age of Africa Advisory Council. There was more. Board member of Institute and Wellness of Exercise, board member of My Health, founder of Hacklab Foundation. That's definitely one we want to go. Board member of Digimark. I mean, you are one busy individual.
I do my best to stay sane while still contributing to making the world a better place. So,
Oh, that's awesome. So can you just tell a little bit about yourself and your journey and sort of where you are in this technology space?
thank you very much. I think it's very conflicting when you look at my age and when you look at what I have done and you ask yourself, how have I been able to achieve all of this in parallel? Because at any phase of my journey, I've been involved in maybe 3, 4, 5 things at a time. And that's being out of my curiosity and my genuine interest in helping develop an economy or helping solve some of the world's biggest problems that require a lot of hard work. I've had the chance to contribute to building and designing blueprints of things that have never been done before, whether it's on the continent, in the country, in specific industries and sectors. And that sums everything I've been able to achieve so far. My background is in computer science, business process engineering, decision-making, innovation, and analytics. And that brings everything together in terms of the roles I play on boards, the advisory work I do, whether for governments, private sector, public sector, or at the intersection of all of it, in terms of policy, in terms of governance, in terms of implementation, in terms of change management. The list goes on and on. And for the startups I work and support from time to time, we focus more on building sustainable and long-lasting businesses, especially on the continent, that can help grow their market caps to significantly competitive levels as other firms outside of Africa may have reached. Most recently, I've been focusing more on policy-related work. I believe there are so many players in the innovation space, in the invention space, in the governance space, in the consulting space. But the most difficult part, which unlocks opportunity for industries, is policy. And so I'm spending a lot of my time with the Center for Canadian African Research Center. We recently just released a strategic review of FinDev Canada's operations on Africa, which is Canada's development finance institution with an assets book of almost $2 billion. And we did a review on their mandate over the last 8 years of operations. I write a few thought pieces on geopolitics, on policy, on human capital. The list goes on capital markets. And it's all with intent to inform the actors in the space and to also tease out areas that require a deeper dive when it comes to innovation, when it comes to when it comes to leadership. to be able to drive the sectors forward. Yeah.
Right. No, that's fantastic. And our little company, we do business all around the world. So we've got clients on every continent, I think, not
Mm.
Antarctica, but most of the continents. And we've got a few clients in Africa as well. And what we see, and we're working with really large companies typically. And man, it's the same problems that they're having elsewhere. It's a lot of challenges with big global vendors and sort of keeping track of assets and IT and all of that. So the names are a little different, but the problems are the same. What about the smaller side of business in Africa as a entrepreneur? Like I know for myself, challenges and hurdles that I face being a guy from New Jersey trying to start a company, a consulting firm or a technology firm in the States. What's different in Africa? What are additional challenges that people might have as they're thinking about, doing stuff that I've done or you've done, or they want to do something brand new that they haven't done before. So what else is out there? Maybe in the policy space is is there something stopping, or is it a vibrant industry of entrepreneurs out there building businesses? Tell us a little bit more about what you say.
So there are three things that can be treated in isolation. I consider them not mutually exclusive: access to capital, access to markets, and capacity building. Right. At the intersection of these three requires policy leadership, infrastructure to be able to drive completing that golden triangle. And for any economy to thrive or unlock enormous potential opportunity for players in the space, these three things have to work together. If I gave you money and you didn't have access to markets, and you didn't have the capacity to manage the money and resources you have, you still won't succeed. If I gave you a contract worth $1 billion and you didn't have the money to pre-finance it, or at least meet some of the criteria when it comes to capacity, you still won't be able to realize that potential. If I gave you all the capacity in the world and you didn't have the money and the market to finance it, the money to finance it and the market to serve, your capacity becomes irrelevant, right?
Mhm.
So these three cannot exist in isolation. And Africa is no exception when it comes to the potential to unlock with these three things. I called it a golden triangle for any industry, right? And at the lowest level, Africa's Africa's GDP is heavily contributed by over 70% of businesses who form what we call small and medium-sized enterprises. And they form 90% of the sector, of the markets, and contribute 70% to GDP.
Oh, okay.
That tells you how significant small and medium scale enterprises are to the GDP of Africa's productivity overall. And they actually employ the highest number of people on the continent as well. Now, however, these 90% of businesses happen to be limited in the opportunities available for them in terms of potential to the ability to realize these potentials because of these three things again. A lot of government contracts, a lot of private sector contracts have a lot of procurement red tapes. You need to have 10, 15 years of experience to be able to bid for some of these opportunities. You need to have a certain set of skills as a human, as an individual expert, to be able to qualify for certain job opportunities. You need to have 2, 3, 5 years of experience and have similar experience in managing certain sizes of capital to be able to unlock capital from the financial services sector. Now you realize that no matter what angle you go, as a small business with limited experience and limited capacity, no one is going to give you the chance to meet that criteria that red tape is asking for. Because the first step is crossing that red tape. And so many of the opportunities are limited. So the concentrated 10% of the market happen to be the ones always being leaned on to produce these things. Now, something happens, right? The 10% take the opportunity and it cascades down to the 90% of businesses who do not qualify for this rating, either subcontracting, hiring, and all the things that happen within the value chain or the supply chain of that 10% of business sizes meeting the requirements or delivering the service. Now, when these things happen, the 10% guys take the big chunk of the money and pay these guys pennies on the dollar, right, to produce the same services, still limiting their capacity, still limiting their access to finance, and the most important thing, delays in payments, net 90, net 60, net 120 days in paying them for services that they deliver. During this time, they go into shocks. They go into financial shocks because they are limited on operating budget, operating capital. They go to the financial institutions. Interest rates are extremely hiked because they are considered high-risk businesses. Even if they go and sell their invoices for invoice discounting, they tend to have high premiums on the invoice discounts that they negotiate for to be able to secure operating capital. So you realize that the ripple effect is intentional. What does it take to unlock some of these things? Policy, leadership, will. When I was a Standard Bank, I joined Standard Bank in 2017, one of the largest banks in Africa by assets. I worked from the Ghana office in the beginning, helping set up the Innovation Center, which became a mediating vehicle between the bank and industry. Now, the CEO at the time's mission was, let's set up an innovation center that focuses on building the capacity and governance of businesses, small and medium-scale enterprises, so that the bank can unlock potential partnership opportunities. Now, when I joined, there were three key things that I wanted to achieve. Reduce the red tape for procurement for small and medium-scale enterprises to be able to enjoy a quota of the procurement budget the bank has every year. We achieved that by introducing new procurement policies and new procurement onboarding processes for small and medium-scale enterprises for certain services the business or the bank procures. The second thing was to reduce the red tape for hiring, subcontracting, freelancers who form the larger part of the gig economy today. So many unemployed young people today in Africa rely on gigs to survive. If a large-scale enterprise like a bank, which has the purchasing power for so many services, tend to have a challenge with cost containment, budget management, all of that, cost efficient, budget efficiencies, all of that, and the gig economy, which presents an alternative to maybe the big fives and the big tens when it comes to consulting services as a way of cost containment. Why not outsource services to them? But the procurement infrastructure, the procurement framework the bank was operating on at the time did not recognize a freelancer as a potential service provider to them. So we eventually developed a policy framework that governed onboarding freelancers, validating them, making sure they meet certain requirements to qualify delivering services to the bank. This was unlocking opportunity number 2. Number 3 was partnerships. The compliance requirement for third-party evaluation of service providers to the bank was extremely high. And for most of the SMEs, they will not qualify on day one when it comes to compliance and governance requirements. So we had to design a framework to categorize services the procurement department is required to procure for different departments into low-risk service areas that the same compliance requirements applied for high-risk service areas wouldn't be. And that's how we solved for unlocking the red tape for these small businesses. To date, I'm no longer with the business, but it's been one of the most efficient way. The finance department is happy that they're able to manage their costs by using these alternative procurement mediums. And for the businesses outside, they're starting to enjoy doing more businesses with the bank. There's a cyclical effect when it comes to working with financial institutions. These same SMEs who are vendors to the bank are businesses that the bank banks within the SME portfolio and the business and commercial portfolio. As they grow and scale, they transition from smaller portfolios of being within the SME banking portfolio to the business and commercial portfolio. The bank still benefits at the end of the day. So the short-term gain is help build their capacity. The long-term gain is you get to bank them in the future because they become large-scale businesses, right? So that's a typical business case when it comes to solving for Africa. And this is not something you would be able to solve without local context of the problems and the environment within which businesses operate within Africa.
Yeah, and what you're saying rings so true to me. Again, we've done some business with larger African countries, and for years we couldn't break into the market. We just, for some reason, whatever we were doing, it just wasn't working. And
Mm,
then, one of the three things you mentioned, partnerships, local knowledge and partnerships. And so we finally found some folks who, worked globally, but they were born and raised and lived in Africa and had a lot of connections that they could then introduce us to. And I
mm,
think, that gives you then access to markets because now they're connecting you with people that you can solve their problems. But then it's also, and this is not just true in Africa, but it's, everywhere. Like I think of, doing business in the States as like the standard way because that's how I grew up. But every country is different. Every region is a little different, and having someone that can walk you through, this is how we do it here, this is how we do it in this country, and
yeah,
here's what, and the policy part being, from outside the continent, um, just understanding how tax laws work and, those kinds of things. As you go cross border, and I know it's from, states to a country in Africa, but I guess it could be between countries in Africa as well.
mm,
Having people with the skills and the knowledge to walk you through that as a small business person, I think is really important because it's easy to make mistakes. It's very easy to sign a contract, to start down a path, and then to get a bill from a tax authority saying, "Oh, by the way, you owe me $30,000." It's like, what? I had no idea. So
yeah,
for me, it's about limiting. When I think about policy, it's how do we have policies in effect? I don't even care what the policies are. I just want them consistent and transparent. So and everybody plays by the same rules. Whatever those rules are, whatever works for that country, we will figure out a way to do it. I just need to know as we go in. So is there, uh, what's the trend towards transparency, or even is there like an EU equivalent in Africa that talks about policy across countries? Because I've definitely noticed different countries have different ways of doing business,
yeah,
and it's not like Germany and France where, other than the language, it's pretty similar. Uh,
yeah.
how is that transparency and consistency across the continent going? What are the efforts there?
So today, as we speak, there's something called the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. This is our version of the European Union as a
Hmm.
framework to facilitate intra-Africa trade, to facilitate movement of goods and services and people as well. And this is a framework that's being championed by the African Union with support from its agencies like the Africa Development Bank, the Africa Exim Bank, amongst others. This framework has been in place, has been part of the Vision 2065 agenda of the Africa Union. Recent times, I think we just had all the countries ratifying to participate in the framework last year. And so far, there's been negotiations going on the various phases. We have the digital protocols, we have the trade protocols, we have single market agreements. Just 2 days ago or yesterday, the Africa Union presented the single SATM, SAATM air tariff agreement, a single air and transfer movement agreement. I'm trying to remember the full how they pronounce the full. But basically, for the first time, Africa is going to have a single transportation and air agreement that allows for a single tax policy to apply across board. Otherwise, borders would negotiate and there'll be clear protocols in between specific borders, what
Hmm.
tax is applicable where. The reason why it's cheaper to travel within Europe as compared to it is to travel between, and even cheaper between African countries in Europe as compared to within Africa is because of the non-existence of this Saturn, right? Now, this framework being implemented is going to ease and reduce the cost of movement, goods, services, and people as well. Now, the AFCFTA as a whole is going to make Africa uniform from a business operation standpoint. That means there's going to be likeness in licensing, likeness in tax regimes and tax frameworks, likeness in distribution of goods and services across the continent, and likeness in policy frameworks. This
Mhm.
means that as a multinational business, you don't have to struggle too much um, trying to fix the fragmentation between the countries within which you operate. And for the small business or for the business operating in Ghana, trying to expand to Nigeria, trying to expand to South Africa, trying to expand to Kenya, can now do so with ease because one license could potentially be passported across the continent. Now,
Mhm.
Ghana and Rwanda has been a good use case or case study for what we call the passporting license for financial services. There's currently a piloting going on between Ghana and Rwanda, where when I secure a payment services provider license or an EMI license within the fintech space or financial technology space, in Rwanda, I'm able to operate in Ghana by extension, and in Ghana by extension in Rwanda. This means that anyone who wants to potentially start a fintech in Africa would consider one of those two markets because automatically they go through that rigorous process of securing a license in one country and just check a few boxes in Rwanda and they're able to get their business operating there. Eventually, if this is as this framework matures, it's going to extend to many other countries. And these multilateral, bilateral relationships between countries is all coming together to form the Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
Mhm.
And for businesses like you who struggle to navigate and understand the nuance of Africa, Africa's 54 countries, country by country region, trade bloc by trade bloc, sub-region by sub-region, this becomes an easy way to translate your business into the continent. Because as of today, you require a consultant in every single one of those markets who
Yes.
understands the nuance of that market to help you unlock your business over there. And that can be very tedious. That also increases your cost of entry into the continent and the market, specific markets as a whole, cost of professional services, the list goes on and on. Issues within tax reconciliations, repatriation of your funds and investments as and when necessary, hiring talent into the various countries based on their LCR quotas. The list of things and the checklist you have to go through as a multinational business considering Africa can be very tedious and very expensive. But does the market has promised extreme promise? I believe Africa is going to become the human capital powerhouse of the continent in the next century, right? Africa is estimated to there's going to be about one in every four people in the world by 2060 is going to be African,
Mhm.
right? And the median age of Africa is going to be around what, 20 to 25 by then,
That's young. That's young.
right? Extremely young. If you take a country like Italy, which has an average age of about 50 something, and many other countries that have a very aged population, they're going to rely heavily on power on talent from Africa to power their continents. The math is very simple. The more dependency, the more the population of the dependency ratio, the higher the cost on the government to feed to take care of its citizens, whether
Yep.
it's infrastructure, road, etc., and even paying out pensions, healthcare systems. The list goes on and on. The higher the working population, that means there's more productivity going on to finance the operations of government and taking care of the dependency ratio. So Africa becomes the working population that helps other countries power their economies and increase their productivity. So it positions us in a very unique place. The other things are natural resources. Critical minerals today have one of the largest deposits of critical minerals, which is going to power the next digital transformation, whether it's producing chipsets, and whatever and you may want to quantum computing, all the infrastructure you need for the next generation of computers is going to be heavily reliant on Africa, right? So you ask yourself, are you early or behind? And what do you need to do to prepare yourself as a business owner, as an innovator, as an investor to earn a piece of that pie or to contribute to shaping the markets that you later invest in, whether it's through impact where contributing to policy, sharing your knowledge, establishing partnerships for exchange, knowledge exchange, cultural exchange, or what it takes to prepare the continent to serve your economy or to serve your type of business.
It's interesting. So years ago when I worked at Oracle, we everything was done in each country. So France had their people in France, Germany had their people, Egypt, U.S., like every country. It was 100 different countries, subsidiaries, and my job was to sort of bring it all together and at least not necessarily geographically, but sort of from key controls and operations and have standards. And so one of the things we did was have these, we called them centers of excellence, where we would take for Europe, we put a whole bunch of people in Romania. So we hired local talented people in Romania and, a lot of people in the rest of the countries as they retired or moved on. We just didn't replace those roles. So it was Romania, it was Bangalore in India, we did something in the Philippines as well. Uh, we never talked about Africa in terms of that. And this is 15, 20 years ago. It just never came up in the conversation. Is that changing? Are people talking about, like, if I was at Oracle or at a big company, would I put a center of excellence in Africa now? Is that like everything you said, skilled, um, a young workforce with infrastructure, like that's what we looked for so I would think if I was at a big company now and I wanted to build these centers of excellence to take on some of these roles because there just was no one left to do them here, I think Africa would be on my list now.
Mm, 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 mm.
We have to get them on the list.
Yeah. No, if you look at, and just to double click on what you guys do at Palisade for Oracle and with Oracle, the boom of cloud infrastructure expansion in the other continents compared to Africa is you're experiencing a significant growth and adoption in Africa. Why? Because there's an emerging market opportunity. It's still considered a very green field when it comes to how much of digital adoption has been done and what's the potential left to be served, right? When it comes to uh, percentage of Oracle's services, global versus Africa, crazy. You're seeing a
Right.
great uptake when it comes to strategic positioning, when it comes on artificial intelligence, because of the adoption of these things in Africa, there's a natural need for Oracle services in Africa,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is through your services you sell through AWS, through Microsoft, all these guys. Nobody who plays in the cloud industry today can exist in isolation of Oracle, whether it's through a proprietary technology that you're white labeling for them or they're consuming directly from Oracle. So you ask yourself, how do you position yourself for Africa? If 70%, 70 to 80% of the businesses are small and medium scale enterprises, and 90%, sorry, are small and medium scale enterprises, and the cost of Oracle post purchase is still expensive because of support, which you hire from outside the continent and pay top dollar for. There are issues around, I produce my services in Africa, I are sold in local currency, but I am paying for infrastructure in USD.
Mm-hmm.
That means the cost of purchase of your services is always hedged against how the USD is performing against my currency. If it hikes, the cost of my infrastructure budget increases significantly. That means the cost of my support also increases significantly. So does it serve the small and medium scale enterprises as well as it does for global businesses or even states infrastructure? Not really. That means if I borrowed from Oracle or if I went into technology debt with Oracle, which was maybe pegged at 1:1, if there's inflation, then it becomes pegged at 1:5. That means the cost of my budget shoots up drastically and potentially could ripple into withdrawing from contracts with Oracle because that wasn't anticipated and we can no longer use your service because it's too expensive. So they start to look for alternatives. So for me, innovation for companies or OEMs and large scale businesses like you who operate in Africa is start thinking about how do you build local technical support? How do you build local subject matter experts within the continent so they don't have to travel outside of Africa to serve these businesses? That means if you are paying them in Ghana cedis, if you are paying them in local currency, you can charge in local currency. Now there are taxes that are being introduced for these digital assets or digital class of services within the various countries, and you have to pay them in local currency. So any service provider who uses you has a tax implication on their business, no longer global. So you start to figure out, how do I localize my pricing? How do I work with financial institutions to create financial instruments that can allow people to consume or purchase my services and have a financial plan to pay for these things in local currency? But from your global perspective, obviously you're a publicly traded company. You start to think about, what does your market cap looks like? Do you need to launch corporate bonds, or do you need to start listing some of your subsidiaries in Africa on the local market so that you raise local currency to back your local investments within those countries? So it's really about, you have to do a lot of thinking when it comes to innovating around the survival of your business on the continent, but more importantly, making it affordable and available to the African. Because at the end of the day, the cost is passed to the end user. So if
Yes.
cost of my infrastructure increases, that means the cost of consuming any technology or service that sits on Oracle or sits on any cloud infrastructure is passed to me. So it's a cyclical thing. That means poverty will continue. If there's more poverty, there's less inclusion. If there's less inclusion, less adoption of your technology, and the ripple effect goes on and on and on. So when you think about Africa, there's significant investment required to unlock the potential of the market in terms of purchasing power at the consumer level all the way to the enterprise level.
And the things that you're saying, there might be, the scale of the problem might be different, but income inequality, and I was reading just today about how the average car in the United States is over $50,000 now, and who can afford that? If you're a young person who makes $40,000 a year, and you want to buy a car and it's $50,000, so this, you definitely need that affordability. And one of the things that um, when I was looking through your 44 different experiences on LinkedIn, the one that I looked at a little closer was I'm looking at it right now, was the Hacklab Foundation. And, just to give some folks here, Hacklab Foundation is an international nonprofit organization headquartered in Ghana with a focus on preparing the youth for future digital jobs through technology, education, and skills development. So you founded that, and can you tell us a little bit about how that works and how you're helping young folks on the continent there as they try to build their skills in the new era of technology and AI and all of that?
Yeah, so Hacklab Foundation came out of frustration when I was in the university. In my second year, I was part of a community that was funded by Vodafone, one
Hmm.
of the large telecoms in Africa. And what happened, the leadership of the community eventually graduated, and there was no plan to succeed and continue the community. I found that community very, very useful as a first as a freshman in college, trying to find a community of like-minded people, innovators who were crazy, who probably missed class to stay in the lab and figure out how to develop new things that will disrupt the world. I found it very useful, and when it discontinued, it was challenging for me. So I decided to bring a bunch of my friends together to set this up. So we launched our first hackathon, had funding from Standard Bank, hence my initial relationship that
Hmm.
actually evolved into me working for Standard Bank. And they seeded the foundation. We launched our first hackathon, had 72 innovators come together over a 48-hour period, developing solutions for what will become the e-commerce sector in Ghana. It was very early stages at the time in 2015, right? So we went on, built a community, uptake was high, people were interested. The bank decided to continue funding it up to like up to 2 years ago. We still were receiving funding from the bank. Eventually, I came to realize the community we were building, which we had built to almost 18,000 people. The model was starting to change. The partners we were working with started to realize that this was a recruitment pipeline for them to find the next best talents for their digital transformation journeys. and to also solution use cases or potentially discover new use cases for their technologies, for their services, for their APIs. The API economy was just starting to build up during that era, right? So they started to realize they could rely heavily on this pipeline. So we use the hackathons as a way of crowdsourcing ideas for the corporates, building the skill and introducing enterprise technology that these students may not have access to at all. So we got a chance to work with IBM using IBM Watson. We launched one of the biggest artificial intelligence hackathons in Ghana, which scaled to other countries. During COVID, we ran a remote online program called Digital Nation Africa Program, which introduced 11,000 learners to IBM Watson.
Wow.
And today we have alumni from the program who currently work for IBM in France, in Ireland, and a few other countries, right? We also worked with the former Twitter to redesign their developer community program on Africa and launched the Twitter developer community program. We worked with Apple, the Africa developer program based in South Africa, to introduce many developers to the Apple developer program and how they could deploy more Africa solutions on the App Store for people to use. We worked with Meta as well and on a few community-led developer projects. We worked with Oracle as well. So one of our board chair actually is an ex-Oracle. He was the one who launched Oracle in Ghana. He set up and he worked with a few. He worked to set up a few countries in Africa as well for Oracle. Franklin Asari, very grateful to him. He helped us gain access to Oracle Cloud Credits, Oracle Solutions, opened up Oracle's enterprise environment to the students for the first time, right? And the reason why most of these large-scale OEMs and technology partners are unable to find local talent is because if I don't work for a company that uses Oracle, I can never get to know how to use an Oracle solution, solve for their problems. So if the requirement to be hired as a newbie or a fresh graduate from the university into these firms is to have 1 or 2 years experience in an Oracle technology or an IBM technology or whichever it is, I should have had exposure to the platform, first of all, right? So the hackathons became a means for us to launch student-related programs or learning pathways or design courses based on these environments, give them access to these tools for free for up to 1-2 years to learn, build use cases, and develop their ideas on those platforms. And it's evolved to involve so many things today. So that's basically what Hacklab was trying to unlock. We are evolving into a new phase. It's our 10th anniversary this year. Next year, we are launching the next decade of action plan. And for us, the goal from next year is to digitize our entire community, make it self-led. We fully digitize, being able to set up hackathons, being able to work with technology partners to launch weekly challenges, to launch recruitment-based challenges. So rather than put out a job post on a job board to hire talent, launch a challenge and discover talents through the solutions that they come up with. You're able to quickly find talents through that. You're able to expose people to new technologies by creating sandbox environments and allow people to build use cases in Africa. Because if you launch the same challenge, you'll find a solution from Zambia totally different from a solution from South Africa, totally different from a solution in Nigeria, totally different from a solution in Togo. And these solutions that come out tell you the potential use cases of that new technology you're about to launch. And that's how the likes of Adobe today, Canva, and all these guys are playing in Africa. Because Africa is so complex to understand, and the only way to build use cases that are unique to Africa's problems is using open innovation challenges, innovation approaches to developing some of these use cases and solutions. So that's basically what Hacklab is evolving into become: a recruitment pipeline, a potential crowdsourcing of use cases. We have conversations ongoing with the public digital for public good program under the UNICEF as one of the ways to escalate solutions that come out into large-scale open source models that can be explored and local use cases developed for in other areas based on what the innovators come up with. So those conversations are going on to figure out a framework around ownership, IP, skill, investment, and all of that to support the innovations that emerge out of the platform. And for me, thank you for giving me this platform. I'll use it as an opportunity to call out for potential partners who may be interested in working with us on developing some of these challenges on the platform, whether it's leveraging Oracle's cloud to host the platform and deploy new technologies on there, figure out how to build APIs into the system, because we have a partnership with GitHub, which allows our developers to develop solutions and open source projects that is available to others to explore. And we are looking for as many solutions as possible, and conversations going on with OpenAI to deploy the OpenAI Academy on the platform. I know Oracle has an academy as well. How do we build these courses on the platform so that people can take up the courses, jump onto challenges related to the courses, and jump onto recruitment pipelines related to the skills they acquire through the platform.
I love that idea of you throw out a challenge and see the solutions that come back to you, because I can't imagine, like, there must be some instances where you're getting these responses back and you're like, I never thought of it that way. I never thought of it that way. Boy, that is brilliant. Like something, like you say, you throw that wide net out and you never know what's going to come back in. And you just get these, I see it here. I see it with our clients, what did you try? And I'm amazed. And that worked. That was great. Let's try that again.
Fun fact, the famous Toby, which is Vodacom's chatbot system, majority of the guys who built that are because of Hacklab, right? And it was built during COVID.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
Vodafone was one of the sponsors of the hackathon for a long time.
So if people wanted to know more about Hacklab Foundation, or get in touch with you, or sort of participate, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can just go www.hacklabfoundation.org. You find a website, as much information there as possible. You can always find me on LinkedIn, Foster Awintiti Akugri. Very responsive on LinkedIn. Happy to have conversations, get on some Zoom calls, and figure out what we can do together. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Listen, Foster, I have to say you were the world's greatest podcast guest today. So, so look out for a coffee mug one day.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it, and potentially look forward to seeing how we can work with Palisade and your network partners as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the work that you're doing. This has been a great conversation. I'm going to be going onto your website and just poking around a little bit, because we're in the same boat. We're always looking for talented people, and sort of it's not just the big multinationals that need talented, energetic people who want to make a difference, right? It's us little small business owners. Now I just need you to fix the tax policy throughout Africa so I don't get subjected to VAT taxes and all of that surprises. Please, whatever you can do to fix that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of advocacy ongoing, collaborations between. I think policy can always best be refined through private sector active participation and willingness to support through the process, because the taxman doesn't understand your business the way you do. So the taxman is unable to categorize your business appropriately to pay the right taxes, or to even understand what a business model is, to know what to tax and the impact of the tax on the last mile consumer. So intentional, I urge industry players to be intentional in extending an arm to tax agencies across the continent, and how to help them understand, host workshops, host policy conversations, host tax review conversations, write your own independent reports, share the recommendations with these tax agencies to understand what these emerging economies mean, what giving a tax holiday would mean for these sectors, and the importance of how the revenue lines this could potentially generate for them if they create a sandbox to incubate some of these tax ideas that you're coming up with. And for me, I've seen a lot of progress between if you go to government to wait for them to do things, nothing will ever happen. But if you extend a hand to say, hey, we are in private sector, we understand this better, and we can help you unlock what it means, at the end of the day, it's a win-win for both of you.
Right. Now, listen, and like I said at the very beginning, very similar challenges, just when we talk about tax policy. the way California does it is very different than the way New York does it, is very different than the way Texas does it, is very different than the way New Jersey does it. And you just shake your head. It's like, they say yes and they say no. It's the exact same thing. Why do I have to? So it's
Yeah.
across country borders. I just can't imagine just that level of dedication and sort of. But um, I think when I look at our business, we're 15 years old,
Mm.
and it's only been the last 3 or 4 years we started to get business in Africa, right? So I can see it changing. I can see sort of the openness and sort of the ability for people to find other people. It's different than it was. So thank you for all your work, sort of opening it up and setting the stage, and hopefully we're helping our clients who are based on the continent. And it's just this has been a great conversation. So again,
Uh,
anyone, hacklabfoundation.org is the website to go to, correct?
yeah, it is. And my LinkedIn, very active. So yeah,
LinkedIn, you've got the link on our website on this podcast. If you did like the podcast, subscribe to it. Tell your friends and family about us. We really do appreciate it. And Foster, thank you again, and thank you everyone for spending some time here on the world's greatest podcast.
it's my pleasure.